Hello, everyone. I'm Adrian Antonio.
And I am Mary Lear, and we are welcoming you back to another episode of The Surface. It's so great to have you back as host this week, Adrian, and of course, happy birthday.
Thank you. 18 feels pretty weird. It's great to be back, though. If you aren't caught up on all of our episodes, I was a guest on last week's episode as a representative of Academic League. Mary was captaining the ship on her own, but she did pretty excellent, if I have to say so myself. But I do have to admit, it's been quite a while since we've had a traditional episode of The Surface.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We've had our mini episodes, two-part specials, spring break, hosting by myself. I think it's time we get back into the groove of things.
Yeah, starting with a quick breakdown of the show. Now, if you've been watching the show for a while, you know how it goes, but let's refresh our memories. Each week, we send a survey out to our students to get their opinions on the life at SCEPA and discuss how they feel in our segment called Below the Surface. Next, we usually get a special guest or guests to come on the show and speak with us live.
And of course, we start every episode with some announcements. Speaking of, Adrian, what's going on above the surface?
We don't have many announcements today, actually. All you have to know is that our freshman class has a fundraiser that started today and will end on the 7th at Tapioca Express in National City. Show the flyer shown on your screen in order for part of your order to go to our class of 2024. Summer intensives are coming up. You can sign up for more information at levelupsandiego.org. This is not just summer intensives, however. There are academic enrichment programs involved. So if you just want to feel part of the community, make sure you look for more information regarding that. As much as Mary and I love our jobs, the search for the next host of The Surface has started. While the show was the product of the pandemic, many agree that the show must go on after Mary and I graduate. If you think you have what it takes, stay tuned. And that's pretty much all we have for today regarding announcements. Mary?
Yes, I'm very, very excited to see who's interested in hosting The Surface next year. You know, Adrian, we have not addressed the elephant in the room. Students have the option of returning to campus part-time.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say my birthday, but yeah, I completely agree. I'm personally not back on campus. It's just too far for me, and I just don't want to have to keep going back and forth, but I'm stoked if you're back on campus and if you're loving it. Mary, aren't you back on campus?
I am back on campus. It's so exciting to see people again and get back kind of in the groove of things as we are doing tonight. It's so exciting to be able to see everyone. Now, this is the first topic that we asked about on this week's survey. We asked our viewers how many of them have returned to campus, and so far, nobody who responded to the survey is back on campus, which is very surprising to me.
Yeah, things are slowly starting to look up and return to normalcy, however. I just got my second dose of Pfizer last week. It was a bit crazy. If you saw my Instagram story, you'd have seen my temperature fluctuate crazily.
And I am fully vaccinated as of this weekend. Got my second dose a few weeks ago. Very excited. I know that a lot of my friends who are 16 and older are starting to get vaccinated. So let's talk about how many Surface viewers have been able to secure an appointment.
We asked you if you've been vaccinated yet, and over half of our viewers who responded have. Hopefully we'll see an even higher percentage once we get a vaccine for the youngsters out there.
Yeah, I think it's so great to hear about all of this news, but of course it's not what we're actually here to talk about.
That's right. We're here to talk about SCPA's upcoming production of Les Miserables and how the performing arts have had to shift due to the pandemic.
Our survey asked how students have had to adjust their art since the beginning of the pandemic. Different types of arts require different tools and settings. We just wanted to see how people have had to adjust. One response from an instrumental music major says, as a musician, I am able to continue to practice and record at home. Although there are a few extra steps to submitting my work, such as ensuring a quiet room and proper recording equipment, I've used this as an opportunity for improvement. Recording allows me to listen back to my playing and find those areas that may need adjustments, such as breath control, articulation, phrasing, and dynamics. This person brings up a really good point. I think that it's nice to look back at what you've recorded and know exactly how you can improve. At the same time, I find it to be kind of a double-edged sword. I know that whenever I'm recording something, I always find the tiniest things to criticize, and I go over and over and over again and get like 30 takes of the same 30-second bit.
Yeah, I completely agree. The last semester I took vocal performance with Rami, and I took it freshman year. And when I did that, it was all live. You'd only get one shot to perform live. And once you did it, it was done. You made a few mistakes and you'd receive constructive criticism. But when you're recording by yourself and you're rewatching the video, you're your harshest critic. So you're just constantly tearing yourself down. And sometimes what should have been just one take turns into 30 to 40 takes, and it becomes a whole kerfuffle. A cinematic arts major said, "I actually am able to do my art during the pandemic. Honestly, I think the pandemic really forced me to do better in it. Now that we're slowly returning to normal, I just have to work on adjusting to the new norm and way of learning." Yeah, this really will be an adjustment for everyone impacted, which is everyone, not just students, but teachers, admin, and staff all alike.
Absolutely. Art's really going to continue making shifts even as the pandemic starts to look better. But before we get into Les Mis, we wanted to just know what some of our viewers' favorite shows have been in the past. Some shows mentioned included Anything Goes, Billy Elliot, and In the Heights, all great shows that we've done in the past. You and I both know the difficulties of singing live on Zoom. You've had your vocal classes with Rami. I've had my musical theater classes, but it has to be so much more difficult on a large scale.
Which is why we're going to be talking to some representatives from Les Mis and see how they've been working.
I may be in the ensemble of the show, but I think that you guys have all heard enough from me, which is why we are so excited to introduce tonight's guest.
Give a warm virtual round of applause for Dylan August, Juliana Dora, Christina Buengan, and our very own Stephanie Steiner from the Technical Theater Department. Welcome, everyone, to the show.
Welcome. Yes, so I think first things first, Adrian said all of your names, but we'd love it if you could all just introduce yourselves, starting with Dylan. Go ahead, say what you're doing in Les Mis and who you are.
Hello, my name is Dylan August, and I play Javert in Les Mis.
Great, great. Let's move on to Julianne, hear a little bit from you.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be back. My name is Julianne. I am a senior, and I play flute in this year's musical production of Les Mis.
Also worth noting that you are our first repeat guest. You have now been on the show twice. You were in last week's episode, or I guess 2 weeks episode, about our clubs and organizations. So we're so glad to have you back. Christine, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Buengan. I'm currently a senior, and I play violin in the production Les Mis.
Great. And last but not least, of course, Ms. Steiner, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Steiner. I'm working with tech for this show, working with a fantastic crew to try to find ways to bring sets, costumes, and props into a virtual Les Mis. So glad to be here.
We're so glad to have you. I know you're a big supporter of the show, and I always appreciate that you let me plug the show during my class with you. So just right off the bat, we wanted to know experience that you guys have previously had with theater. Theater obviously involves a lot of moving pieces. So pre-pandemic, we're curious to hear a little bit about what your experience has been like. We can start with Julianne if you'd like.
Yeah, so the very first musical production I worked on was Billy Elliot here at SCPA. I got to work with Miss Page, other great musicians, and even alumni. And I was only a sophomore at that time, so it felt very rigorous having to spend so much time practicing. But I really did enjoy watching the whole show just unfold as the orchestra started coordinating with the actors, the dancers, and the tech crew. And finally, just putting on such a great show was really satisfying since I was able to say, hey, I helped make that happen. And even though I wasn't able to actually watch it, it's really great to be a part of our very first digital musical production right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Christine, I can't help but notice your shirt. Maybe if you want to talk about some prior experience you've had, that would be wonderful.
I worked with our music teachers, Miss Page and Mr. Cabrera, for the musical 33 and a Third House of Dreams, which premiered at the Lyceum Theater in 2019. I joined because I wanted to challenge my violin playing skills, but I ended up learning the importance of teamwork as the actors, band, and stage crew worked together to create a stunning show. I also worked with Miss Page again in 2020 and had the opportunity to play with Piano Guys at their concert in San Diego Civic Theater.
That's so exciting. So great to hear. Ms. Steiner, if you want to talk about, you've obviously had a lot of experience, but if you'd like to talk about some of it.
I've been doing theater actually since I was in junior high school. That's what we used to call middle school back in the day. And so every level community, worked San Diego Repertory Theater, worked with Broadway San Diego, and of course now working with the school district. And I was happy to be a part of the first round of Les Mis that happened at SCPA back in, I believe, 2006, may have been 2005. And so excited to be a part of this production that's coming up now.
I'm excited that you're here as well. And then Dylan, if you want to talk about some of your theatrical experience.
Yeah, so I've actually been a part of musical theater for 4 or 5 years, I think. My first show was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And I was very intimidated going into a room of people who had been doing this all their lives. But, I got used to it, and it's been a lot of fun since then.
Certainly a very exciting thing to do. So I am curious, live theater and digital theater are so different, and obviously there are so many things that change. How has this experience of working on Les Mis been a completely different experience for you? Julianne, I'll start with you again.
So the process of recording begins with Mr. Cabrera and Miss Page creating all of these practice tracks and Google Drive folders. And we have short meetings with Miss Page where she gives instructions such as tutorials for the strings. Sometimes I work with Mr. Cabrera. And afterward, we use the asynchronous time to practice, record, and submit. Then Mr. Cabrera takes all of those audio recordings and puts them together to make it sound like one cohesive orchestra. So shout out to Mr. Cabrera and Miss Page for all of their time and efforts. And since we are basically finished with recording all of the audio for the entire show, we are now recording videos of ourselves performing, which will then be included in the musical. So it's very exciting.
So exciting. And I think that we were talking earlier about how being a part of these digital performances has also made you guys all learn new skills like video editing and audio editing and stuff. Do you think that these skills are going to be valuable even beyond the pandemic? Julianne, if you'd like to talk about that, maybe?
Oh, definitely. Since I am kind of used to Zoom now, I think using these skills in the future will definitely be helpful. I never expected myself to be learning how to mix audios and all that. So this will definitely be beneficial for future skills, especially since I'm going into college.
Yeah. I made a Christmas song in December. Never thought I'd do that, but that was a fun experience that I think the pandemic brings out a lot of creativity in us. Christine, the same question goes to you. How is this a bit different than every other stage in the whole theatrical process? You can answer that.
My personal recording process starts off by finding a time when my house is quiet and when no one is sleeping. At first, I practice the whole song with the vocals, then move on to practicing the song in sections with Mr. Cabrera's click track. And most of the time, I end up recording the songs in even smaller sections to make sure I'm proud of each recording I submit. I also text Miss Page whenever I have any questions.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Dylan, if you'd like to maybe talk about sort of your process and how things have changed.
Yeah, it's wildly different. Usually you have someone to play off of, a scene partner. So that's the major difference with me. Like when I'm singing something between Javert and Jean Valjean, I don't have anything to react off of, so I have to kind of make that on my own. And we have a green screen behind us, and then we have the reference tracks that the orchestra has made, and it's crazy. And the audition process was really strange. Well, not strange. It was just weird for me. But we sent in a recording, and then we got called back, and we were in just a Zoom, and then we just sang. I sang Stars, Javert's pretty much his main song, and then we just kind of left, and then just waited for an email.
Definitely a very, very different experience. I know that there are a lot of technical problems that happen during Zoom rehearsals. I'm sure that everyone can relate to, or that it's a bit crazy when everyone's trying to sing at once. Zoom can't really keep up with that. Ms. Steiner, how has the kind of process changed for you as the pandemic has come on?
Well, we're normally such a collaborative process, and not being able to be in the room with each other, with the designers, being able to watch a performance has been kind of hard. But on the other hand, we've had wonderful opportunities to be able to collaborate with people outside of our school. So we've met with designers from across the United States who come into the classroom to kind of give us feedback and help in how we're going to do our end of the process. And the idea of being, how do we take something as big and spectacular as Les Mis and then bring it down to a single background image to suggest the setting, or a single costume piece to show a character. So it's really forced us to kind of rethink how we look at the show, but also rethink how we collaborate as a team to make that show happen.
Great. Yeah, I totally know what you mean. I think that it goes back to that kind of idea that we're learning new skills to add on as a result of the pandemic. And who knows, like green screens might be even more present in theater even after the pandemic goes away. So I am curious. I know that we were talking earlier about how you've worked on some other digital projects this year since the pandemic began. Ms. Steiner, if you'd like to talk about some of those other projects and how they've kind of been similar or different to Les Mis.
Sure. There was a district-wide honor theater project that actually 9 students from SCPA were a part of. And so by collaborating district-wide with these other students, with the students from SCPA, we were able to try out some things in that virtual performance that we were able to bring back to our own and actually learn from that experience as well. And of course, I would never forgive myself if I didn't shout out my working virtually with the Academic League, Go Academic League, which has been fun as well.
That's great. That's great. There are just so many different ways to explore art during the pandemic, even if it's at a kind of weird moment. Julianne, I'm curious if you've had other experience with the digital performance, not just in musicals, but outside of musicals during the pandemic.
So since I am a senior, I have been working on senior projects. Recently, I chose to play Mia and Sebastian's theme from La La Land, where I recorded both flute and piano. I had to learn a bit of audio mixing as well, but I was really happy with that. I also got to record a performance for the La Jolla Kiwanis. They actually sponsor the music department here at SCPA, so a couple students and I recorded performances, which were then showed to them as like a little appreciation. And soon I will be working with Christine and a few other musicians on a group music project, which I am very excited for.
So when you talk about your senior solo project and stuff, I know that my capstone project was very different from what's been done in the past. I'm just wondering if for you personally, you found that it was more forgiving or more difficult because there's that added layer of audio mixing. How was that kind of experience of working on that project?
So I believe that some aspects can be a little more lenient while others can be more restricting. For example, we don't need to perform live, so it provides us a lot more time to really just plan out what we want to do and really make sure we perform it the way we want. But on the other hand, there is a lot of effort that goes into the senior projects, such as recording and audio mixing. With the upcoming group project, it might be a little difficult planning and perhaps even playing together through a digital platform like Zoom, especially with the Wi-Fi and other technical issues. And even with Les Mis, I have to ask myself, will this blend well with the rest of the orchestra? Am I even playing this right? But even so, I'm still grateful to even have the opportunity to participate and work on so many projects, even during this pandemic.
I think that's really, really eloquently said. Now, I'm curious, Dylan, have you been working on other forms of theater during the pandemic, other digital projects?
I've actually been really fortunate to have a great outlet during the pandemic. I have been able to do shows with theater film professionals. We got COVID tested right before we would film, and then we would go in and film shows such as The Outsiders or little known shows like Future Here and plays like that. And then I also started a podcast actually with my friend Asher, who is playing Jean Valjean in Les Mis. It's called Not Your Typical Talk on Spotify, and that's been crazy. It's been a lot of fun. We have weekly ones. So the work that you guys put into this, I really appreciate it coming from another podcaster. And then, I have really creative friends who have also put on other things. We did a virtual version of Hamilton and we just kind of sang through the stuff. And now we have those videos for ourselves to look back at, kind of similar to what we're doing with Les Mis. And yeah, it's just, I've been very fortunate with that.
Yeah, you sound very lucky, and you bring a good point. I think that in a way, The Surface is another form of digital art and digital journalism in this time of the pandemic, which I think is a point well taken.
Yeah, like just thinking of all the aspects of the teams behind The Surface. We have a wonderful team of graphic designers. We have a wonderful team of people behind the scenes like Ms. Gutierrez and Izzy Silva. It's just been a wonderful experience. Same question goes to Christine. What digital projects have you been a part of during the pandemic? We're interested in hearing what you have to say.
Last semester, I recorded a duet and solo project for orchestra. It was frustrating to learn the mixing process at first, but I ended up being very happy with the final products. I especially enjoyed making my solo project as I chose a challenging song that I knew I wouldn't be able to perform live normally. But because I could re-record and split the songs in sections, I was able to make it happen.
I think that that's something that I've kind of taken for granted throughout this process, is that there are things that we can do more difficult, more challenging, because we have that kind of freedom of re-recording as many times as we need. Like, there are definitely risks that I would not take live that I would be able to do in a recording. So I think that that's a really interesting point. And that does kind of bring me to my next thing. There are obviously so many things to complain about during the pandemic and in the world of arts during the pandemic, but I think that there is a lot of good to come out of it as well, lots of new ways to explore art. And I'm just curious what some of your favorite, more positive aspects of creating art during the pandemic have been. Ms. Steiner, if you'd like to start us off.
Sure. I think the best part about this, as odd as it may seem, is having a chance to explore art in a new way with my students, and to be able to have, for the first time, many of them know more about the whole electronic world, the whole virtual world, than I ever knew. And so being kind of hand in hand with them as we tackle this new era of Zoom theater and the Zoom world has been absolutely wonderful, sometimes frustrating, but very, very learning. And it's just been cool to be as part of the learning process again. And I made a note that this is our third different style of learning that we've gone through in a year. We left school, we went immediately into Google Classroom and the async sync world that nobody had heard of. Fast forward to the beginning of the school year, now we were completely, online, but doing this new Zoom thing. And then now fast forward again to a few weeks ago, and now we're in this hybrid setting. And the most amazing thing has been just how versatile and how open-minded everyone has been to this process, and just realizing that no matter what, the art's going to continue and our ability to learn is going to go on.
Now, I keep forgetting, I keep addressing you as like an artist and an artist alone without acknowledging the fact that you are a teacher as well. And I am just curious, your perspective as a teacher, how like teaching has changed for you, and how teaching the arts is going to be something that adjusts as the pandemic started.
I will say this again, adding to the pros. We had so many professionals from the field reach out to us. And so we were able to bring people into the classroom that I never would have had the opportunity to bring in before. And we had guest artists from across the United States who were like, sure, I'll totally come join your class. And students were reaching out and saying, hey, Mr. Lapshi Chu at UCLA, you're the head of lighting design. Can you come talk to us? And he did. And things that we normally wouldn't have had a chance to do, we were giving liberty through this platform. And so, to have at this point, I think we're at close to 20 guest artists came into the classroom this year, just because of the ability to utilize this platform. And it's been phenomenal. So doesn't beat being hands-on, but it's been wonderful to be able to learn from the pros.
I agree. It is really wonderful. You mentioned that, and I haven't really appreciated the fact that I've had guest artists from New York and LA being the same time. And I think that that is something that's really great about being able to learn online. Julianne, same question goes to you. What is something positive to come out of making art during the pandemic that you think you're going to value?
So as mentioned, recording really allows me to listen back and really improve as a musician. For example, I am a part of the string quintet, which plays I Dreamed a Dream, which is a very light and pretty song. So it is important for me to really capture that feeling of vulnerability. And I had to listen and record back so many times as the flute soloist to make sure it sounds as pretty as possible. I also use this as an opportunity to get better recording equipment, such as a microphone, which I believe is a great investment, especially with these online meetings. So I've been very appreciative of being able to really just expand my set of skills in artistry.
Absolutely. Even though we're not tech majors, I think everyone's starting to become a little bit more technologically focused. So Christine, I'm wondering, same thing to you. What is something that you're going to take from this whole experience throughout your career as an artist?
So in orchestra, we usually, play as an orchestra. And although I miss playing with everyone, I think it was a nice change of pace to be able to do solo projects. Furthermore, doing solo projects also gave more freedom for our song choices. I was also happy that I learned how to mix songs so I can continue recording violin covers in the future if I wanted to.
Absolutely. It's just so wonderful. And then Dylan, of course, what is something that is positive from this pandemic that you're going to take with you as an artist?
Yeah, so that's a great question, by the way. I think it's beautiful to see everyone come together and put a whole new meaning to the phrase, the show must go on. I mean, there's so many different things that have been released on YouTube, on like TikTok, and all this stuff that is just like, wow, it's really cool to see everyone come together. And not only that, I think it's going to be everyone's going to appreciate live theater so much more when it's back, because it's something that we never thought we would lose, and all of a sudden it was just gone. So I think it's going to be great coming back to that. And like I said, I loved seeing everyone come together. And it was nice to be able to have multiple takes of things if I messed up once or twice, you know? So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just want to thank you all so much for coming and joining us here on the show. It's such a pleasure to talk to all of you. All of you speak so beautifully. And just thank you for being on the show and for joining us.
Thank you for having us, and happy birthday, Adrian.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
No, we're not singing happy birthday. Thank you for joining us. Ms. Gutierrez, you can do the thing. That sounds so mean when I say it in retrospect.
All right, great to have them on. So we're going to move on to our student spotlight. If you guys are unfamiliar with our student spotlight, new to the show, we get to showcase student work towards the end of our show. Our student spotlight this week is from the junior fine arts major, Riani Cooper. We'll pull up Riani's beautiful image now. All right, Riani says that considering the theme is dreams. Oh, I should start off by saying that this was submitted as a piece for the Juniors versus Seniors week. So Riani says, considering that the theme is dreams, I went with an ethereal vibe and drew a light dragon weeping in a mythical, soft environment that is dreamlike.
Yes, unfortunately, Juniors versus Seniors week was somewhat downsized due to a lack of submissions from some of our artists. So we decided that it would be only fair to highlight some of the work submitted on the surface. I completely agree with Riani's statement. I do think this gives off the vibe of an ethereal environment. It truly is a beautiful piece that captures the theme of dreams ever so much. So yes, we'd like to say thank you to Riani Cooper for that amazing piece of work.
Yeah, thank you. It really is a very stunning piece. Our time is out, but before we go, you should know the ways that you can reach out to us and get more information about The Surface. We have an Instagram account at thesurface.scpa, and make sure to check out our section on the SCPA Mainstage website. You're just going to head over to sdscpamainstage.com and go to the Student Series page. And there you will find us, The Surface, and you can see all of our episodes, our Student Spotlight submission area, and our weekly survey.
Speaking of our weekly survey, let's talk about next week's episode. Join us to celebrate our fellow seniors in next week's show, Beyond the Surface, where we're going to be talking about what the class of 2021 is doing once we graduate. To give a little teaser, Mary and I are going to share where we're going to go. Mary, you want to go first?
Sure. I am going to Pace University, and I'm going to be studying film and screen studies. And Adrian?
And I will be going to UC Berkeley, where I will be studying environmental policy at the College of Natural Resources. We're so excited to just highlight all of our fellow seniors next week. So we hope to see you there in celebration of the class of 2021.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. We are so excited to see you next week on
The Surface.